About 3 years ago I bought the Feiyu G3 3-axis gimbal to use with my GoPro camera. And at the time, if I had known how this thing was going to eat through batteries, I don't think I would have purchased it. You can see that I bought a pile of batteries. I started out with 3 and that didn't work very well because they don't last very long. I go out and do some four-wheeling and you really need some kind of stabilizer to get decent shots, so this seemed like the right idea. But when you have to stop all the time and change batteries, even with having 18 batteries, I couldn't get through an entire day without running out of battery power. So this is a short video about how I achieved another way to operate the gimbal without the use of these batteries. So the batteries are gone. In their place, I am going to install this 11.1 amp Turnigy Lipo battery that I'll be able to use externally. And other people have done that. In fact, I'm going to put up another YouTube video of a guy showing you how to wire this into the gimbal. I'm not going to repeat what somebody else has already done, but I decided to take it a step further. Since most of the video that I shoot is done from inside a vehicle, I decided that 12-volt battery coming out of a vehicle, cigarette lighter, that should work. I asked around to see if there was going to be a problem with going from the 11.1 volts that the battery provides to the gimbal to 12 volts, and I couldn't get a solid answer, so I figured rather than take a chance, I bought a DC regulator on Amazon. Oop, a little too tight there. And wired that in line and adjusted that to 11.1 volts. Now I did try the camera at 12 volts. It didn't seem to have an ill effect on it, but I didn't want to take a chance that it might cook the motors on the gimbal. So for the moment I'm going to leave this in line, but I have a feeling that you could just wire the cigarette lighter directly in, and with the difference in the voltage, I don't think you'd ever have an issue. But I decided to go this way, and this is the way I'm going to show you. So I started off by watching a video on YouTube, and it showed a guy hardwiring harness into his Feiyu gimbal. And like I said, I will put that up on this listing because I don't want to go through having to take this all apart and show you. It's basically the same thing. The only main difference that I did is this rubber grommet right here I had left over from installing a ceiling fan. It's the isolator for one of the fan blades. You put these in the fan blade and run the screw through them. And I drilled a 3/8 hole, and that fit in there perfectly, and it was perfect for the wire. This red and black wire, it has a connector on it now, but I added that. It was actually part of this entire harness that has a cigarette lighter, and it had a female coupling on the other end. I just cut it off. I liked it because it was heavy duty wire. Again, this is something I purchased on Amazon, and I'll show that in my listing as to this part, the DC regulator, and for the cigarette lighter plug-in. The next thing I did was add connectors so that I could disconnect it from the cigarette lighter, and if I wanted to get out of the vehicle, I could just plug my Lipo battery into it, and that would give me an external power source, and I wouldn't have to use those little batteries. And I haven't tested this yet. I don't know how long this battery will last, but I'm guessing for the amount of time I spend filming outside of a vehicle, it's going to last me the whole day. The other component that I bought off of Amazon are these male and female XT60 connectors. that I put on the end of my little pigtail coming out of the gimbal, and on the end of the cord that the cigarette lighter is on. The battery that I bought already had that type of connector. I added the shrink tube to the end of it. It's a shrink tube that has glue inside of it, so it really grabs on. I wanted to have something that would hold on and give me an extra place to pull from when I'm plugging and unplugging this. There's one added feature that I put on this. I use the extension tube a lot, and so I wanted to add a switch. So I also added a switch to the tube, and I've got that just held on with Velcro strips. I made a couple of holding points on my 3D printer that I can run the wire down through that stabilize it a bit. When it's all assembled, I have the two extension tubes on. There's your harness coming out of the gimbal, comes down to the XT60 plug, plugs into the switch. The switch right now is plugged into the cord that goes to the DC regulator and the cigarette lighter. So you plug that into the cigarette lighter. The digital readout will show 11.1 volts for the output. I can hit the switch on the exterior and turn the unit on and off. If I'm getting out of the vehicle, I can disconnect either ahead of the switch or behind the switch, whichever one I want to do, and install the battery pack, and I can walk around outside of the vehicle with the battery pack. That pretty much takes care of it. I'll show you what the DC supply converter or power pack or whatever you want to call it. And that shows the output going out to the gimbal. This is plugged into the cigarette lighter. There's the input from the battery, and again the output to the gimbal. So that's pretty much it. And I have tried it out, and it works very well. Hope this has been a help to you. I'm looking forward to not having to deal with these little monsters anymore. And you do have to know how to do some soldering. There's a fair amount of soldering. The shrink tube I use, I kind of added extra to make it a good, firm, strong installation. Even under the switch, I made an aluminum plate to go into the switch that then wraps around the two connectors and shrink tubed it so that the switch is good and solid. And that's it. Hope this is helpful to you.